Hey, and welcome back to the Super Freak podcast. Let me guess, you've started a new routine, new planner, new habit tracker, new business, new workout, diet plan, and it goes great for a week, and then it fizzles, and you fall off track, and a little voice in your head whispers, see, you're just not disciplined enough, not organized enough, not good at this, not motivated, you should just give up. I want to offer a reframe today that might change the way that you relate to structure and to self-discipline and motivation and thinking that you need to be more organized, especially if you are someone who is ambitious and thoughtful and really, really hard on yourself when you don't stick to the plan, or when you even struggle to make the plan work when you have a busy life. I know a lot of us just live really full lives, and when we see something that we really want to do, we can think to ourselves, I don't know how I'm going to fit that in. I don't know how I'm going to achieve that goal. Because here's the thing, it's actually not that you're bad at self-discipline or that you need to be more organized or more motivated. It's just that nobody taught you the version of discipline that works with your nervous system, your identity, and your actual life. And if you've been quietly carrying around the story that you can't stick to anything, that you always burn out, that you should be more organized or more consistent by now, let's shift that today in this episode because, my friend, you are not broken. You're not doing it wrong. You're not missing something inherently as a human, but you are missing a few key ingredients that actually make discipline sustainable, and you're doing the best that you can with what you have. There are so many things that we've been taught completely backwards, and one of them is this: traditional motivation doesn't work because motivation, contrary to popular belief, doesn't just magically sprout up in our brains and our bodies every day. It's a byproduct. It's not a prerequisite. It's something that happens once you get started. It's something that happens sometimes spontaneously, but for the most part after you begin. Let's start here. Motivation-based systems and goals and strategies they are everywhere. In fact, we've sort of been taught, and most productivity advice assumes that you just need to be more committed, more motivated, more organized. You need to, try harder. And most growth strategies involve you using a lot of your own willpower to force yourself to do things, especially when it feels really uncomfortable, which is not a bad thing for the most part because sometimes, we do need a little bit of a kick up the bum. But I'm specifically speaking today to this issue of feeling like when it's not working, it's because you're not enough somehow, or there's something inherently missing within you. The truth is, motivation is fleeting. And when we don't feel motivated, we think that we're failing. But that's often because we've put motivation on the wrong end of the strategy. We've actually placed it at the beginning when really it's just something that we shouldn't even care about or expect needs to be there. So when we do place it at the beginning, we cue the shame spiral if it's not there. And what's really going on underneath is a mismatch between your systems or your strategy and actually your whole identity. And this is one of the biggest reasons people fall off track, is because they're building habits around relying on motivation and wishing for a result instead of building habits from who they really want to become and showing up as that right now. And instead of even relying on habits, because habits don't necessarily require motivation. So let's take leadership as an example. If you were kind of wishing that you were a great leader and hoping that it happens, you might think about what it is that you have to do and say, well, I need to speak more confidently, or I should probably read that book on executive presence, or once I get through this busy season, I'll finally show up like a real leader. I will try a bit harder. I'll show up a bit more visibly. I'll speak up a little bit more. But identifying as a great leader right now, it actually sounds quite different. It sounds like, what would the leader I already am do in this moment? How can I honor my energy and still show up with clarity? What boundaries help me lead with integrity and not burnout? And coming from that place, you're going to get different answers. Do you see the shift? One version, which is like, I probably should be doing this and I need to be doing that. One version that keeps you chasing. The other anchors you into the identity that you're already stepping into by desiring to create more leadership. And when you operate from that place of who do I need to be in order to do this, your habits, the design of your habits, they naturally follow in a way that is more aligned with the result that gets you there faster without requiring motivation or effort or more discipline. And you'll likely become more naturally organized as a result. Now, let's talk about the subconscious reasons why we resist structure in the first place. Like, why don't I want to be more disciplined? Why am I not motivated? Let's talk about resistance in general. Now, if you've ever avoided structure, even though you know that it helps, that is not laziness, my friend. That is often a subconscious signal of threat. And this is true for so many creatives. Structure feels constrictive. Sometimes structure feels like it's been tied to punishment or perfectionism or pressure or school. So, of course, your nervous system revolts or resists, right? Shameless plug, inside Be Your Own Coach, one of the first things we do is actually untangle that so that you can relate to structure as something really supportive and not restrictive. And you start to build systems that feel like scaffolding and not, shackles. And that shift really changes everything. But I digress. Let's continue. I want you to think about it like this. Without structure, and all like freedom and flow, we become wandering, aimless, listless, smelly hippies. Just to paint you a picture. Sorry, hippies. I'll just say this. It's chaotic and it's unsustainable. Too much structure though, and it feels suffocating. It's so boring and it's so beige and it's brittle and it smells like burnout and broken dreams and broken planners. Structure without freedom is rigid and lifeless. Freedom without structure is chaotic and it's unsustainable. And the sweet spot is just enough structure to hold you and direct you with enough flow internally to let you breathe and play and explore. Now, when I was an interior architect, we had this thing with council when we were designing houses called the design envelope. And we were designing and building these super fancy homes in Sydney, but they had to fit right in with the local environment. So there were certain rules for that, but within those rules, we could sort of do anything. You had to paint the roof a certain color, for example, and the building that you were designing had to be set a certain distance from the boundaries, and there was a maximum height that we had to design. But within that, like inside that house, go bananas. That to me is such a great example of where creativity and motivation sparks. It's really in the balance. So if you can make an association where structure in your life actually leads to more creativity, more safety, more fun, more freedom, you can start to lean into finding structure that once again aligns with who you are and not what you think you should be to get a result. And I'll give you a hot tip. When I'm doing business mentoring with my clients, so often part of the reason why they feel undisciplined or unable to create results, or why they haven't gotten them until we've met, like up until that point, that's why they're sort of wanting to work with me, is because the structure that they have created is somebody else's structure. It does not line up with their energy. It does not line up with their values. It doesn't line up with where they live, their life stage, the fact that they have kids or an illness or pain in their life. Like, when you can start to think about structure not as there's only one way to do it, but what's the structure that I need, you can start to create support. You can start to create systems. You can start to create outlines and frameworks that really help you cut decision making, but direct your energy towards what it is that you want to do in a safe way. That means you get to be protected from hurting yourself or ending up in more pain or burning out. So the outcome of doing this is that your results feel sustainable and they feel authentic to you, not like you had to bust your ass to make something happen, which in turn actually decreases the likelihood of wanting to repeat it, which means you get the result, but it's not sustainable because you don't want to do it again because you just need a big old fat nap at the end and you're exhausted. Nobody likes that. So if you're looking to become, say, more organized, redefine structure as the space for flow to happen safely. And then don't look for motivation. Look for habits that you feel drawn to actually doing with inside of that structure. And then think about how you can do that in a way that lines up with who you want to become. Hey, I just want to quickly interrupt this episode and say this. This intersection where identity work and nervous system regulation and habit design, this is one of the most powerful shifts I see in my students in Be Your Own Coach NLP Immersive. People stop trying to push through and instead they start removing the resistance that is between them and what they want. and they start leading themselves really naturally. And from that place, it becomes just so motivating and easy to want to then do that with others because we have real world example of it. So they learn how to release old patterns that sabotage progress, rewire their beliefs and their behavior at the subconscious level, and create systems that grow with them, not ones they grow to resent. So if this really resonates with you, I would love to have you go deeper inside of Be Your Own Coach. Come and check it out at hayleycarr.tv/NLP-training. And I'll leave the link below the episode too. Okay, let's keep going with the episode. So you don't just create random structure, you think about who you want to become. So let's talk about that now. The solution is this: identity-based habits. So it's about first asking, who do I need to be to create this result? Before you ask, what is it that I need to do? I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. The difference is that when you're clear on the qualities that you need to possess as a human in order to create the result, and then come from that place as you do the things, you'll actually answer the question, what do I need to do, quite differently. So, for example, let's say you want to launch a new offer in your business. If you jump straight into, what do I need to do? Your brain might say, make a sales page, post on Instagram, send 3 emails, build a funnel, annoy people on the internet, right? But if you pause and you ask, okay, who do I need to be to launch this in a way that gets the result and feel the way that I want to feel, you might realize I need to actually be quite calm. I need to trust myself. I need to be generous and grounded and come from a place of service, not frantic and proving. From that place, you're doing the things you actually do, just change just ever so slightly, but enough that makes a real difference that is so felt. Maybe instead of going crazy, writing a million sales pages and posts and whatever, you send one really beautifully crafted email instead of over posting in places where no one sees you out of fear. Maybe you record a voice note instead of waiting till your branding is absolutely perfect. And the result might be the same, but how you get there feels entirely different. And how you feel when you get it doesn't feel like you've pretended that you're someone that you're not. You've pushed yourself beyond what you're capable of, your energy. You actually feel like, it's actually kind of like, similar to what I was talking about in the last week's episode. Being exceptional doesn't feel that motivating and exciting. It just feels like, okay, cool, I did that. That's actually how I want you to feel. I want you to feel like, yeah, cool, I did it. Like, great, the result is there. Because if you're not super excited about it, this is going to sound really weird, right? But if you're not over the moon thrilled, oh my God, I actually did it. I'd like to thank God and I'd like to thank this person, that person. If you're not that, it's just the result. It's just what you've achieved. It's just what you've done. It's just who you are. It's an extension of who you are. That's what we want. We don't want you to be clawing your way over the finish line with some dramatic Oscars speech at the end because it was pure luck that you got there. No, we want you to get there thinking, I can do this again. That was pretty easy. So how you get there is actually really important. And usually when you have designed this from that place of like, who do I need to be? It's more effective because it's aligned with who you actually want to show up as, not as anybody else's idea of what success means. And when it's aligned with that for you, you feel more inclined to want to do it again. It's actually really motivating and exciting all on its own. Cue the natural motivation. This is what we love. This is what we want. This is where we're going. Okay, let's think about another example here. Let's say that the result that you want, so let's say you're really frustrated because every morning feels like an absolute shit show getting your kids out the door. And by the time you sit down to do your work in the morning, you just feel like you've lived 3 lifetimes. You feel haggard and it's really stressful. And the result that you want is more peaceful mornings, getting the kids out the door. If you go straight into, what the F do I need to do? Your brain might say, you just need to wake up earlier. You need to pack lunches the night before. You need to make a checklist. You need to do your hair and sleep with your hair done so you don't have to get your hair done, like get everyone moving faster. But if you ask yourself first, who do I need to be to create a peaceful morning? It sounds a little bit weird, but bear with me. You might realize I actually need to be calm and peaceful. I need to be present. I need to be playful instead of reactive to get the kids to do what I want them to do without yelling at them. And from there, what you do shifts. Maybe instead of rushing or yelling louder or like pushing them to do things, you turn on some music and you just guide them towards what you want them to do next. Maybe you give your kids a 5-minute warning instead of barking orders. Maybe you set up some kind of like star system so they can check off what it is that they need to do in the morning, so that they eventually get to remember it on their own and they create their own habits. It's the same goal, but it's a different energy. And the ripple effect is huge. Caveat though, I'm not a parent. This is just an example. Don't come at me. It's just an example. But discipline that lasts isn't about forcing yourself to follow someone else's plan, or a plan at all sometimes, or what you think is someone else's strategy, because that's half the time what we're doing. We think if we get a result, we think of a person who gets the result, then we think we need to act like that person. It's also not even about the plan. It's actually about habits. It's really about designing habits that align with where you want to go and who you want to be. This is how we remove the effort. Once a habit is installed, you don't need to think about doing it. That's what a habit is, something you don't need to think about doing. It's like an unconscious strategy. Now, to do this, it's really quite simple. Most things just requires us to be willing to slow down just long enough to ask ourselves the question that redirect our thinking. So ask yourself, number one, who am I becoming, or who do I want to be in this situation? Or what is the outcome that I want? That's probably the best first question. What is the outcome that I want? Then secondly, who do I need to be to create that outcome? Then thirdly, what kind of structures or habits support that version of me? And then finally, how can I make this feel safe, easeful, fun? When you build from identity, not just willpower, you actually stop fighting yourself, and it feels so good. You become someone who is naturally consistent because your habits just reflect who you already believe yourself to be. When those habits are aligned with where you're genuinely heading, not where you think you should be, something really shifts as well. You stop questioning whether you'll be able to stick with it. You stop relying on motivation or hoping that it's magically just going to show up one day, because the actions just really feel like an extension of who you are and not something you have to try to be. And that's when discipline becomes really easeful. It just becomes habit. And following through stops feeling like a question of, can I do this? And it starts becoming, of course I do this. This is who I am. Okay, let's have one more example here just to drive this home. Let's say you've been telling yourself, I just need to be more disciplined. I need to get my shiitake mushrooms in a row. I need to get my act together. I should be more motivated by now. I'm this age. But what if the real shift isn't about discipline or motivation at all? Let's say the result that you want is to feel more in flow with your workday. So you're telling yourself you need to be more disciplined. The result that you want, that first question is, I need to be in more flow with my workday. To get things done without burning out, that's what you want. To not feel like at the end of the day you're a haggard rat dragging yourself home, needing to pour yourself a gallon of wine just to settle down for the day. Because right now, you're able to get to work and you're able to work hard, but you find yourself maybe never really switching off, or maybe you're at a point where you want to create more, but there's actually no room to create those results because you don't switch off. Old you might say, okay, I need to be more organized. I need a tighter schedule. I need to push harder to get my work done earlier. Failing to remember, of course, that when you give a driven person more time, they just fill it with more stuff. But if you pause for a moment and you ask yourself, okay, who do I need to be? Who do I want to become? Who am I becoming? And your answer is, I want to become someone who trusts herself, someone who creates calmly, who knows how to switch off, who has strong boundaries, but a really focused mind. Someone who has built real, lasting wealth and who is healthy along the way, who doesn't do it by sacrificing her sanity or her well-being. Then the habits that you build might look entirely different. Maybe it's starting your day with breath work instead of racing in to check emails and reacting and responding, and then you end up having more focus as a result. Maybe it's closing your laptop at a certain time, 3 p.m., and trusting and deciding and affirming that that's enough because that's what you did today. And that in turn directs your focus to make sure that you are prioritizing the most important tasks every day because you have a firm off time. Maybe it's doing less overall, but doing better. It's clarifying what are the actual things that are the difference that make the difference, and what are the things I'm doing that are just busy work, annoying work, things that are not actually necessary for me to get the result, but that I think I need to do. That's the difference. It's not about needing more discipline or more motivation. It's just about creating habits that support the identity of the person that you want to be who has the result. And when those habits are rooted in that alignment, not pressure, they don't feel very hard to keep. They actually just become your new baseline. And this is the key, this is the trick that athletes use, CEOs use, top performers use, people who are great at holding space for others use. It's not something that is situated in one particular type of vocation or type of person. You can use this across the board in your entire life. So my friend, if you have been maybe kind of beating yourself up for falling off track or not getting results fast enough or feeling a little bit chaotic or disorganized or not having the energy to push harder or the focus or whatever, maybe you're not broken in any way or disorganized or undisciplined or not meant to have the result. Maybe you're just building your habits on someone else's blueprint. Try shifting your question from how can I force myself to be more disciplined or what's wrong with me to who do I want to be and what does discipline look like for her? Who am I becoming and what does discipline look like for them? Let me know how this one lands for you. And if you want support learning how to do this, be your own coach is where I would suggest that we begin. In that space, we get clear on your goals, we work out how to create them, we coach ourselves, we learn to coach others, we learn to move through all of the mindset and strategy stuff that gets shackled in the way, and we create a clean slate to create without resistance. So if you're interested in that, check out the link below. Stay curious, stay open. Everything you want is so much closer than you think. I'll see you soon.